Hi, I'm Chris, and in this video we're going to look at how organisations can use digital tools to solve complex business problems. This relates to Learning Objective 4 in the Digital Finance Certificate. So the example I want to look at is National Australia Bank. The situation really is the current one, a global pandemic. A lot of people in Australia took a hit to their finances, and they needed to turn to their banks for things like loan repayment deferrals. Banks are willing to do this, but they need to go through a range of steps to ensure it's done properly. And one of them is around disclosure, a very important step. A lot of this occurs in phone calls. Right? How do you ensure that the correct disclosure is being given, that the customer understands what is required? Right? So how do you get compliance against that? Well, you can audit every single call. That's going to take an enormous amount of man hours and money. You can audit a sample, a random sample, and that's commonly what's done. If your risk appetite is not as high and you're a financial institution, then you also want to consider about whether you can get a more accurate sample to manually review. So what they did, so they went out to market and they had a look around, and specifically they focused on speech analytics, right? How could they improve the operational efficiency and the effectiveness of what they needed to do? They also liked this idea of going from auditing a sample to auditing everything. Right? It's a risk-averse nature of financial institutions. If you can audit every single one, at least at a level 1 audit, then we can focus in and feel more comfortable that we don't have compliance risks. So they ended up talking to Deloitte, and Deloitte had a product called True Voice. Now, what does this product do? It takes speech and puts it into text, and that's relatively straightforward tech these days, as amazing as that is. Then it used machine learning algorithms to analyze attributes. And here I'm talking about things like the tone, the amplitude of the speech, non-semantic communication, the pitch, those sorts of aspects that enable you to start to understand or be able to profile the particular conversation that's occurring, right? Using an algorithm. Why would you want to do that? Well, there's enormous amounts of unstructured data trapped in emails, transcripts, and voice recordings. And if you're able to get that, then you can start to move towards creating what they call a customer view, or think about it in terms of sentiment analysis. You're trying to understand which of thousands of calls do you need to focus on, because there may be issues like bad expression, the use of jargon where the customer is confused and is perhaps not giving all the information they should, but because they haven't been clearly briefed or told what they need to provide. They've misunderstood information in the call. This particular service is software as a service, so it's deployed in the cloud. That's great. It's going to be quick to set up and to implement. But of course, we have to remember different clients, different industries, different expectations, different levels of risk that they're willing to take. So even though off the shelf means faster implementation, this was a big problem for NAB. Data held offsite. The two key reasons, of course, are potential security breaches and privacy concerns. Right? NAB considered their own risk measures for this. One would be to anonymize the data, but they still were nervous enough that they did not believe they wanted to go ahead with the implementation of True Voice because they felt the risk was too high. So you can walk away or you talk with your supplier further. And Deloitte, they basically agreed to create True Voice 2.0 just for NAB and to deploy it inside NAB's AWS environment. The great thing for NAB now is that they feel more confident that all this data is in their data lake. Therefore, the security breaches could still occur, but they're very much just with NAB to protect, not a third-party supplier, and the privacy risks are less. So they're more comfortable with that approach, and Deloitte was willing to do it with True Voice. It's important also, though, to recognize here, and I mentioned it just briefly earlier, that AI and digital tools, machine learning algorithms, they don't have to replace or should always replace all the manual processes. This was about saying we have thousands of calls and we can't audit every single one of them manually. We can take a randomized sample, yes, but if we can use speech to text and then analyze it in a way that we can pick up sentiment of conversations. We can hone in. We can basically get to maybe 200 or 300 specific calls that need that further manual review. By doing that, we're going to increase the probability of finding a compliance issue against disclosure requirements and then fixing it, retraining the team, making sure that we're not confusing people with jargon or poor phrasing, things like that. That's the significant value you can get out of a tool like this. So key outcomes in summary is that now we're able to get significant efficiency and effectiveness improvements, right? And overall, they got what they needed, which was a reduction in the compliance risk. But importantly, in conversations with senior management, they said that True Voice was kind of like a minimal viable product, if you know that entrepreneurial term, to NAB, and that they realized early on, this has a lot of other applications. We can use this to create the idea of model conversations. Right? It doesn't matter so much now what that might be, but if you think about the term, the application is elsewhere. It's not just in compliance. Model conversations occur in everything from performance reviews through to sales, right? So they're only, I believe, exploring further now in where this technology can be implemented. But what we see here is a digital tool picked for a specific purpose can deliver significant results, and then smart people realize how to utilize that technology and take it to different areas of the business.